Good evening. On behalf of the Center for Excellence in Education, the President, and the Board of Trustees, I welcome you to the Center's 40th Anniversary Gala and Dinner event. What a pleasure and honor it is to be here at this time, at this eminent place in our history. My name is Fred Chen. I'm a doctor, a cardiac surgeon, and I went to the Research Science Institute, a program of the center, in 1986, and I was extremely fortunate to be educated and obtain several degrees from MIT and Harvard, and I did my surgical training at the very best Boston hospitals. But even so, after all that time, to this very day, I still count the center as the most important educational institution of my life. Now it really is another family. My roommate at RSI became my college roommate. I was his best man, he was in my wedding, and we remain close friends to this day. And with all due respect to the great universities along the Charles, the center really is the most important educational institution and experience of my life. Now there is, of course, debate on which college is best, which medical school, which graduate school, which physics program. But what all of us can be very proud of is that there is no doubt that for what the center does, that is nurture young, bright high school students in math and science, the center is the very best in the world, hands down, period. And who deserves credit for this? Well, the Admiral Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy, and you'll hear about him later on. And right beside the Admiral, present at the very creation, was the president, Joanne P. DeGennaro, the president of the center. And it's an understatement, a vast understatement, to say that without Miss D, the center would have ceased to exist except for her indomitable determination, force of personality, vision, pure grit, and tenacity. Kind of like John Wick, so to speak. But even above and beyond that, Miss D has been, to me personally, like another mother, and I know my experience really is not unique. She's really another mother to all graduates of the center's program. And so, Joanne, if you could please come out here. On behalf of the board, the chairman, all graduates, we thank you. And if Joanne is the mother to all graduates, then really the sister to all of us is the Executive Vice President of Programs, Ms. Maite Ballesteros. Confidant and therapist extraordinaire to all graduates, the soul of all the programs, giving big sisterly advice, tireless and self-sacrificing to all students. Maite, come out. Maite, on behalf of the board, the chairman, all alumni of all programs, we salute and thank you. And for today's events, the all center staff, a big shout out to them, with in particular Maite and Catherine High, The organization behind this is incredible. Now, you can please be seated. Thank you. We'll now have the presentation of the flags by the color guard of the USS Constitution. And I'm honored to introduce Airman Tyler Winters, Airman Jakirin Collier, Airman Jasmine Johnson, and led by Airman Austin Jean, the color guard from the USS Constitution, for the presentation of the flags.
Constitution, mark time, march. Constitution, halt. Constitution, left, face. Breathe in, arms.
Our national anthem will now be sung by Scott Schaefer, RSI graduate of 1984, and his Schaefer family really is the Sanders von Trapp family. Dr. Tracy Prince, Zadie Schaefer, and Prince Schaefer. Dr. Schaefer is an accomplished gymnast and United States judge in Oregon, and if you could please remain standing for the pledge after the national anthem. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Constitution, order, arms. Constitution, diamond, march. Constitution, left, face. Constitution, forward, march.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Why don't we please be seated, and the Schaefer family has two more songs for our contemplation and enjoyment.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Somewhere out there, beneath the blue moonlight, someone's thinking of me
And loving me tonight. Somewhere out there, someone saying a prayer.
that we'll find one another in that big somewhere out there.
And even though I know how very far apart we are, it helps to think we might be wishing on the same bright star.
And when the night wind starts to sing a lonesome lullaby,
It helps to think we're sleeping underneath the same big sky. Somewhere out there, if love can see us through, then we'll be together. Somewhere out there, out where dreams come true. And even though I know how very far apart we are, it helps to think we might be wishing on the same bright star.
and when the night wind starts to sing a lonesome lullaby,
It helps to think we're sleeping underneath the same big sky. Somewhere out there, if love can see us through, then we'll be together.
somewhere out there,
Out where dreams come true.
we have one more. One more song. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky.
Are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. The next moderator for the evening is Rich Simon. Rich graduated from the Research Science Institute in 1986 If you guys, a little quiet, please. Quiet, thank you. We will rapidly advance through this so we can socialize soon. Just be patient. Rich attended Williams. He was the director of staff in the past, as a dedicated member of the Alumni Fundraising Committee. He's currently in the IT division of Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Now, please don't tell Rich this, but Rich is married to his wife, Ogitsa, and I'll tell you a secret. Ogitsa is much better looking and much smarter than Rich, but please don't tell Rich this. Ogitsa graduated from RSI in 1991, and I'll let you in on another little secret. The center has a very confidential and secretive eugenics program. I mean, it's all confidential. Please keep it confidential. And they are the proud parents of 2 beautiful young children. Rich, turn it over to you.
Excuse me 1 second. Thank you. I'm just looking for a couple of cat videos I need to share on Twitter. Just give me a moment here. Thank you for all being here tonight, and thank you, Fred, for that fantastic introduction. My wife being better looking and smarter than me is obviously no secret to anybody. So, of course, I'm well aware of it every day. When Joanne asked me to come and be the MC for you tonight, I was, of course, honored, and I said, well, if you want to let this loose cannon roll around on the deck, I'm not going to stop you. She said, she would definitely like to have me, and neither she nor Maite would tell me who first choice was, so here I am. Thank you for having me, and I would like to introduce the trustees of CEE. Mel Chaskin, chairman of the board. Stephen Strong, vice chairman. Pranav Adani. Fred Chen. Nader Hariri. Josie Haspel. Noreen Hines. Munir Javeri. Mark Kantrowitz. Wolfgang Ketterly. Susan Coe. Tom Layton. Arvin Parthasarathi. Roger Pellegrini. Cynthia Pickett-Stevens. Clarine Nardi Riddle. Rashid Sabar. Michael Sipser. Feng Zhang. I'd also like to introduce the honorees for the medals we're awarding tonight. Gail Wilson. Admiral Bobby Inman. And Sanjay Palsamudram. So again, thank you to everyone. We will allow you to eat your dinner and socialize. I think even Fred says it's okay now. So enjoy your dinner. I'll be back probably around dessert time, about the time you're going to need that Rolaids, and I'll be happy to supply it. So thank you very much. I will talk to you soon. So the next person who's going to come up and speak, she said no introduction, but of course I can say just a couple of words and get my 2 cents in to someone who has meant a lot to me through my life and whose work you all know. And she's the second person, besides Maite, who knows everybody in this room and is possibly the only, except for Maite, like that. I was going to say in my remarks that I've known Joanne since I was 16, but that's almost everybody else in this room has the same experience of knowing her since they were 16, but my 16 was a little while ago, so that's quite a long time. So I would like, without further ado, and who needs no introduction, the only person, as far as I know, who still possibly has a lock of my hair, and I could use it back, Joanne DeGennaro, president of CEE.
Oh, golly. Okay. I can see a little better, but the light. You know, it's every year I meet new Rickoids, and I don't remember names, but I remember the face most of the time. After 40 years, it gets a little more difficult. So I apologize, and I hope you don't get embarrassed because I don't remember who you are. But in my heart, you're all close to me. The 40th anniversary. Well, 5 years ago, I stood before you to happily report the achievements of CEE's educational programs. 5 years ago, the Research Science Institute at MIT hosted 81 students. The USA Biology Olympiad continued to be presented online for over 7,000 students. The Teacher Enrichment Program was inaugurated in Virginia and sponsored for rural and urban teachers to better their skills to nurture students to STEM careers. This past year, the Lyceums program for students in underrepresented populations was virtually inaugurated in Virginia. Will the Lyceum chairman and the Teacher Enrichment Program manager, both of you, please stand up and introduce. I'd like everybody to know who you are. Heather and Devin. Thank you so much. The Advisory and Consultancy Program was introduced as a revenue program for CEE for students seeking assistance to garner admission to leading schools. It began with 5 students. The center had not yet established relations with Kazakhstan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, or Taiwan for representation at RSI. In 2023, I stand before you to proudly report that RSI hosted 100 fine young scholars to RSI this year. We've capped RSI at 100 from now on, but we've come a long way from the 35 students initially at RSI. This year, USABO had approximately 10,000 students to participate in the online competition for the 4-member USA team to travel internationally. The finals are held at Marymount University. The Teacher Enrichment Program has been hosted in 12 states, and it is planned that there will be many more virtual and live TEP sessions throughout the U.S. Lyceums reached thousands of students online from throughout the U.S. and many nations. Both TEP and Lyceums will host a regional session in November for approximately 100 teachers in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area at an all-day STEM program. The advisory and consultancy has helped students to be admitted to top colleges and universities. And often, it is an AMC international student to be the only international student from his or her nation to be admitted to the Ivies. Sandy, where are you? Okay, Sandy is manager of that program. I also would be remiss if I didn't introduce the manager of the USABO program for many years, and she has never had a team member not come back without a medal. Kathy Frame, where are you? Progress in CEE's programs has been dramatic. A special Board of Trustees committee with CEE staff is promoting diversity in CEE's programs without lowering standards of excellence. CEE continues its efforts to close the academic gaps among groups of secondary school students. Alumni have contributed to CEE's growth with participation in webinars, panel discussions, volunteering for special programs, and with donations. Alumni funding campaigns have increased 44% in value over 5 years. And the CEE endowment increased almost 90% over 5 years to over $8 million. Thank you. While the center continues its mission to help nurture STEM leadership in the global community, my concern grows that academics is being challenged with less freedom of speech to confront the myriad challenges in controversial STEM issues. The clarion call that I see across the country when I visit universities used to be, speak your mind. It has become a call to remain silent to protect your professional future. Grades, excellence, merit, competitions, winners and losers are now often defined as racist, bigoted, and homophobic. To not make the mark designated as top is often defined as disparate impact. As an attorney, I find that repugnant. As Thomas Sowell noted just recently, the social justice vision starts off by reducing the search for causation to a search for blame. And for so much that happens, there is no blame. Academic suffers when speech is stifled and blame is assigned. I feel so strongly about this because I see even rickoids being stifled in their profession by not towing the line for advancement. I encourage alumni to be mindful of the dangers to closing off conversation and stifling the search for truth. You here supposedly have the brains to lead in STEM disciplines related to science and technology and to make this world a better one. Stand up for common sense and make improvements to the structure of this remarkable nation. But quiet those in their tracks that espouse this nation's transformation. Why is CEE almost alone in espousing academic excellence without lowering universally held indices for measuring excellence? And why is there even a need to defend speech, all speech? The challenge is for you. The future is yours. Will it be a nation where differences in academic ability and the clarion call for free speech are applauded? Or will it be a nation led by highly educated demagogues, elitists with no concept of what a democratic republic really is? CEE stands firmly for a culture of understanding and tolerance for all thinking. The center needs your help and your commitment for involvement and continuing support of our work. Long after I am gone, and you as well, CEE must stand as a beacon for freedom, for leadership, and meritocracy in science, technology, and business. Make it happen. After all, Admiral Rickover demands it. Thank you. Where is Rich?
Please, one more time. Tonight's keynote speaker may be known to you or may not. I'll give him something of an introduction, and I'm sure you've heard a little bit already. Feng Chong, investigator at the McGovern Institute. James and Patricia Poitras, professor of neuroscience at MIT, investigator, Howard Hughes Medical Institute, professor, brain and cognitive sciences and biological engineering, core member of the Broad Institute. Moved from China at age 11, grew up in Iowa, attended Harvard as an undergraduate, Stanford PhD, discovers and develops CRISPR tools with the potential to diagnose and treat disease, including disorders affecting the nervous system, founder of several biotechnology companies, and importantly to us, a member of the CEE Board of Trustees. He was awarded the CEE Lieberman Medal in 2015 and has been a great friend to the center. He hosts the event here at the Broad Institute and regularly comes to talk to RSI students, finds mentors, and has just devoted an enormous amount of effort and time to helping out the center and furthering its mission. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Feng Chang.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a great honor to be here tonight. It's especially a great honor to me personally because RSI in my heart holds a very, very special place. And some of the most admired and most respected people in my life I met at RSI. And being able to be here and to share this celebratory moment with the people who I respect and admire the most is especially significant to me. So I grew up in Iowa and in the Midwest, went to the public school there. And as you can imagine, not too many kids were like me. And I was a nerd, and I didn't have that many friends who kind of enjoy nerdy things. And so having the opportunity to come to RSI in the summer of 1999 here at MIT was a transformative experience for me. And being here tonight and seeing so many familiar faces, some familiar faces who I haven't seen for 15, maybe 20 years, brings back so many fond and tremendous memories from the summer of 1999. How many of you who were at MIT for RSI went chairing? Remember that? So I remember chairing, taking one of these chairs from one of the Athena clusters and going down the slope in the hallway. How many of you remember going on an orange or a tangerine tour? Climbing onto the dome, visiting the pyramids, walking through the steam tunnels, doing crazy stuff. Fun memories. I remember when I was at RSI, I was getting into some serious trouble with Alice Clark and Sid Chennai, who were two fellow students in my class. We were designing the RSI summer t-shirt in the media lab. And we wanted to work together at the same desk, so we went ahead and rearranged the computers in there. And little did we know, we unplugged one of the servers that was running a 30-day long calculation halfway through. Fortunately, we weren't expelled from RSI, but it was certainly a very memorable experience. Thinking back to RSI, I think one of the things that really made the biggest impact on my life is that some of my most trusted, closest, and most loyal friends are friends who I made at RSI. They remain friends today. And I'm sure it's true for probably all of you, that the bonds that we forge at RSI during those short 6 weeks is really insurmountable. It's something that really lives with us probably for the rest of our lives. And I was talking to at our table, and we're counting the number of families that have come on RSI. It seems like not only are friendships built, but really lifelong partnerships are built as a part of RSI too. And there's something like 10 families or so, which is really incredible. So anyway, I think those are all the things that really make RSI special. And seeing everyone here and all of your commitments to RSI is really inspiring and in many ways very touching. And I hope that the spirit of RSI carries on for many, many years and decades to come, because it is a really unique and very special program that is much needed in the world today. So I thought I'll just share a couple of things about what I've been up to since RSI, or what has RSI enabled me to do. So I have a couple of vignettes to share, and then I have one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately that I thought might be interesting for you to hear about as well. So overall, the theme of what I've been working on is to harness treasures of nature. Nature is expansive, so especially living things in nature has evolved over billions of years. And a lot of these things are enormously powerful. And by studying them, we can sometimes find very useful tools that can play important roles in improving human health. And so the first vignette is about how pond scum has anything to do with understanding how the brain works. And the second vignette is about how the breakfast, the yogurt that some of you may have had this morning, has anything to do with correcting genetic diseases and understanding human genetics. So let's talk about the first vignette. So Roger Penfield, who is a neuroscientist at the Neuroscience Institute in Montreal, about 100 years ago, were doing experiments on humans who have been undergoing surgery, and they have their skulls open. And what Roger Penfield would do is he would take an electrode and he would stick it in different parts of the brain and try to see what happens when you use electricity to stimulate a part of the brain. Sometimes you will see it when he puts the electrode in one place, the arm will twitch. Or if he puts it in a different place, the cheek will twitch. And so using this method, using electrical stimulation, he was able to start to figure out what the motor cortex, or the part of the brain that controls how our body moves, and really generate a comprehensive map. But the brain is not just controlling our physical movements. The brain controls everything that is human. Our thoughts, our memories, our emotions, our desires. So basically everything that is human is encoded and manifested by the brain. And so what is really important then is to understand how is the brain constructed? How are these cells connected to give rise to these really complex and deeply human functions? So using electrodes, Roger has really paved the way to understanding how the brain works. But as scientists and neuroscientists began to really try to figure out what the brain is made of and how the brain is connected together, they began to run into a challenge. And that challenge is the brain has so many cells in this piece of tissue, and there are so many different types of cells. And they each perform a special function. They are wired together in circuits, just like you see different transistors on a circuit board maybe wired together to compute. These cells, these diverse cells in the brain, they wire together and they do amazing computations and enable our thought, our memory, and our whole human experience. So in order to study the brain, we needed a better way, a more precise way to be able to figure out what each one of these cell types may be doing. And so pond scum is something that I had a chance to work on with my PhD advisor, Carl Dijsselrath, and also a fellow lab member, Ed Boyden, who is also on the faculty now at MIT. So we studied a protein that's found in the green algae, Chlamydomonas reinhardtii. You can find this in the Charles River. It swims and it photosynthesizes and it replicates and it does its own thing as an algae. But turns out there is a protein in a special organelle of the algae called channelrhodopsin. Channelrhodopsin is a protein that converts sunlight energy into an open pore on the cell membrane so that ions can flow into the cell. And so what is possible to do then is that we can borrow this protein that algae has evolved, transplant it into a neuronal cell, or put it into a subset of a defined type of cell in the brain, and start to use light to control all of the cells in the brain. So before, Roger was using electrical leads to be able to stimulate cells. And so wherever it sticks that in, it stimulates all of the cells in that region. So it's hard to figure out what are the cells that are contributing to different things. Using optogenetics, so these algae proteins, we can make a subset of cells responsive to light, so that when you shine a laser on a given piece of brain tissue, or deep in the brain of an animal or even a human tissue, you can start to selectively perturb one type of cell and see how that cell controls motor function or memory or thirst and any other process. And so using this methodology of borrowing a protein from somewhere else in nature, putting it into a human or into a mouse cell, we can start to figure out how the brain functions. And so neuroscientists have been using this for the past almost 2 decades now. They put this protein into different types of cells, and they have been able to figure out some cells are involved in causing arousal, wakefulness, to wake a mouse up. Some cells are involved in thirst. So if you selectively control that set of cells, it causes the mouse to go in and have a drink of water. It also scientists have figured out cells that control emotion, happiness, or sensory reward. And so it's a very useful technique to be able to go and figure out how the brain is wired and how it functions together. So all of this came from nature, from something that green algae has evolved over millions of years. And by borrowing that from nature, we can use it to better understand our own existence, and perhaps one day to be able to treat brain diseases. So that is one powerful aspect of what we can do to mine from nature's treasure trove. So switching gear a little bit, the second vignette is about a different set of naturally sort of evolved systems from the natural world. And these are things called CRISPR. So CRISPR is an immune system from bacteria. And just like us, bacteria in nature gets bombarded by viruses. We get infected by COVID, bacteria get infected by what's called phages. And so bacteria need an immune system to be able to remember virus infections and be able to kill off those viruses to defend itself. And CRISPR is just like our own immune system. It has the ability to remember past viruses and be able to mount an immune response to be able to destroy incoming viruses in the future. What is powerful about CRISPR is that it uses RNA to recognize the genetic DNA sequence of viruses. So just like we have DNA in our genome, these bacteria viruses also have DNA in their own genome. And so CRISPR uses an RNA sequence to be able to recognize the DNA in a virus to destroy it. And it destroys the virus by making a cut in the DNA. What is really useful for us is that we can now borrow these CRISPR systems. We can reprogram it by giving it a different RNA sequence to direct it to recognize a mutation in the human genome. So for the over 6,000 genetic mutations that have been identified that cause human disease, we can borrow one of these CRISPR systems, reprogram it with RNA that can find that genetic mutation in a patient, and that CRISPR can then go in, bind to the specific sequence, make a cut, and allow scientists or therapeutic developers to be able to replace that mutation with the normal sequence to be able to treat the disease. And so this method is now being applied quite broadly in both research and also drug development. And one of the most advanced therapeutics is for the treatment of sickle cell disease. And more than 100 patients have been treated, and many of them have now been significantly improved. All of them are transfusion. So when you have sickle cells, sometimes you have to go to the hospital and get a transfusion so that you get rid of the sickle red blood cells. So all of these patients who have been treated are now transfusion free, so they don't have to go in and get a transfusion anymore. And also it's very likely that the FDA may give an approval for using this to treat sickle cell disease in the coming year or so. So this is another example of how nature has so many powerful things that we can learn and borrow from to allow us to be able to do something that can improve human lives. So those are just two short vignettes of how powerful nature is. But as we think about how to further improve human health, there are so much more that we can learn from nature. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is about aging, or this biological process of how our cells, our body declines as we age. And even for this problem, there are a lot of things that we can learn from nature. So honeybees, ants, are two social species of insects. And what is really cool about honeybees and ants is that they have a colony. Usually there's a queen, and there are a lot of worker ants and worker bees. The worker ants and worker bees and the queen, they share the same genome. So the genetic makeup of those insects are not different. But what is really interesting about the queen versus the workers is that their lifespan can differ by 40 times. So worker bee or worker ant maybe will live for 6 months, but a queen can live for up to 20 years. And so what that really suggests is that the genetic makeup is not the determinant of how long lifespan can be or how the health can be, but more importantly is the interpretation of that program. And so there are a lot of researchers who have been looking at understanding these programs and thinking about how do we modulate the program? How do we figure out ways to be able to restore errors introduced in this program to allow life to become more robust, cells to become more robust, and to be able to counteract a lot of the deteriorations that happens through aging. So anyway, so that's just another example. There are things that we can learn from honeybees or ants or the Greenland shark or bull-headed whale and many other natural living things. And I think these are the things that are going to help us take human health to the next level in the years and decades to come. And to solve these, we need talents. We need students and new scientists who can look at these problems, try to figure out what's happening, and to be able to translate them into inventions and innovations that can improve human health. And this is where RSI is so important, because we need the next generation of scientists. Programs like RSI that emphasize excellence in science, excellence in education, merit, is something that is so important now so that we can create the next generation of scientists, innovators, to be able to help look at nature, mine all these treasures from nature's trove, and to be able to help make our world a better place. There are important problems that are facing our humanity in the coming decades, not only in health, but in climate, in energy, in outer space exploration. There are so many things that is so important that we continue to foster the next generation. So I'll close by saying thank you all for your support for RSI. We need your support. I hope you guys will continue to support RSI and spread the message of excellence in education, this importance of curiosity, the importance of science, and the importance of truth. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those inspiring remarks. Next, I'd like to call up the chairman of the board of CEE, Mel Chaskin, and Joanne DeGennaro to award the presentation of the Medals of Excellence.
Okay, Mel. This is one of the most wonderful times each 5 years that we present the Medals of Excellence to individuals who have really helped sustain the center, work with the center, continue to help us with our mission. And this year, we really have 3 outstanding individuals who, without two of these individuals from the very beginning of the center, we wouldn't have survived. And the third honoree is our international honoree, and I'll talk about him later as well. So, our first honoree is Admiral Bob Inman. Let me say a few words about Bob Inman. He's been a stalwart of CEE since Admiral Rickover chose him to be a charter member of the Board of Trustees in 1983. He was the second chairperson of the board during the difficult transition following Admiral Rickover's passing in 1986. It was Bob Inman who spoke with Admiral Rickover just prior to Admiral's passing about changing the name from the Rickover Foundation to the Center for Excellence in Education to sustain the organization while Admiral was being attacked for allegedly taking illegal gifts or gifts from contractors. Bobby Inman assured that the center would continue and worked so hard with me to identify funding to keep the Research Science Institute cost-free to all top achieving young scholars. He requested Senator Joseph Lieberman to earmark funds from the Department of Defense for the Institute. Indeed, that money has continued through the years. He brought Frank Carlucci, Secretary of Defense, as a member of CEE's board, and the Honorable Frank Carlucci later became a chairman of CEE's Board of Trustees. The VIP speakers for the Distinguished Lecture Series at the Institute, the visit of Rickoids aboard a nuclear-powered submarine, and a meeting with NASA's director, Dr. Charles Alachi at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, were directly attributable to help from Bob Inman. His illustrious positions include Vice Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and Director of the National Security Agency, and includes private sector leadership as Chairman and CEO of Microelectronics and Computer Technology Corporation and Westmark Systems. He also was chairman of the Federal Reserve Board in Dallas. He currently serves as a trustee to Caltech, and this past year, the Admiral retired as the Lyndon Baines Johnson Centennial Chair in National Policy at the University of Texas in Austin. Bob Inman has always had time to assist the center with advice and help with introductions to his incredible network. There is no worthy person as candidate as Bob Inman to receive the Medal of Excellence from the Center for Excellence in Education. Would Admiral Inman please come forward?
Thank you very much.
Will you say a few words?
It has been a labor of love. And it's wonderful to see where we are, the results. But let me be very clear. CEE survived because of Joanne DeGennaro. And CEE has prospered and grown because of Joanne DeGennaro. And we're enormously grateful for her dedication and leadership for so many years. Thank you.
Our second honoree is very, very special, Gail Wilson. A torchbearer for nurturing high school and college scholars in science and technology, since she herself was a Westinghouse finalist and a Phi Beta Kappa in biology from Stanford University. Gail Wilson exemplifies a champion for excellence and meritocracy in academics. A former chairperson of the Center's Board of Trustees, Gail Edlin Wilson was a consummate fundraiser for the Research Science Institute and CEE during her term as chair and a long-serving trustee. I made many trips to California to accompany Gail to corporations to convince CEOs with reasons to support the mission of CEE. Gail introduced the California Galas in Los Angeles for the center to fundraise and meet prospective donors. She identified such honorees as Arnold Beckman, founder and chairman emeritus of Beckman Instruments and a Caltech professor. Ron Sugar, former chairman and CEO of Northrop Grumman. Charles Alachi, former vice president of Caltech and director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Gordon Binder, former CEO of Amgen and a former board member of CEE. And Richard Edlin, four-time Academy Award winner for Best Virtual Effects. These formal events raise millions of dollars for CEE. Gail and I even planned the marriage ceremony for Richard Edlin, which immediately followed the gala in his honor. It was Governor Pete Wilson who arranged for my special credentials as an attorney to perform the marriage. It was an interesting evening for both Gail and myself. The Cosmos Summer Initiative in California would not have been established without Gail's leadership to convince the California legislature to appropriate funds for STEM programs for high-achieving California students. I well remember the long legislative deliberations over the meaning of merit before the legislature voted to establish permanent funding for Cosmos. Gail Edlin Wilson continues to champion the Center for Excellence in Education and still raises funds each year for CEE. She has served on several corporate boards, the Sanford Burnham Medical Discovery Institute, and as the founding member of the San Diego chapter of Achievement Awards for College Scientists. She presently serves on the board of Caltech. She is most deserving to receive the center's highest awards. It is an honor to present the Medal of Excellence to Gail Wilson.
Thank you all. I have been overwhelmed being here the last couple of days. I've loved the lectures, I've loved the panels, I've loved seeing all of these students here, former alums of RSI, and I'm really proud to be honored here tonight. You know, I'm so grateful that my involvement with CEE has been as long as it has. I mean, I didn't go back 40 years, but 37. And so much of my focus on math science education stems from that early introduction to Admiral Rickover and Joanne DeGennaro. Now, looking back to when I was a senior in high school, the same age as the students who come to RSI, I was selected as one of the top 40 Westinghouse Science Talent Search finalists. Little did I know then how much this would mean to me, how much it would affect my life. It was truly a defining, we were going to say transformative moment, giving me the encouragement to pursue science in college, pre-med at the time, at a time when girls were not encouraged in science fields. I majored in biology, but was told I would just be taking a man's place in medical school. Now, fast forward to 1983, when I moved to Washington to marry then U.S. Senator Pete Wilson. I reconnected with Science Service, which is today's Society for Science. And in 1985, I went to view the science projects at the National Academy of Sciences, at the same time that Admiral Rickover and Joanne were going through. So we were introduced. And Joanne followed up, probably with Admiral Rickover's encouragement, by asking me in February 1986 to join the board of what was then the Rickover Science Institute. I remember visiting Xerox and Georgetown University before the program moved to MIT. The Research Science Institute proved to be a huge inspiration for me. Because of RSI, when my husband became governor of California, I did work to get the California State Legislature to pass legislation to create what became the California State Summer School for Math and Science, otherwise known as Cosmos. I did know the governor, and he did put $1 million behind it, to get it designed and implemented by the University of California. We are now in our 24th year, serving 1,000 high school students each summer spread over 4 University of California campuses for a 4-week program. I wish it was like RSI. I wish it was 6 weeks of research, but that's not what we got in California, but it's still a transformative experience for our students. As for my involvement with CEE, I did serve on the board, I was chairman, and I did help raise money. But tonight, as Admiral Inman said as well, I want to give credit for this extraordinary organization to Mrs. D, as she is known, for executing Admiral Rickover's vision of creating a network of the science leaders of tomorrow. I understand about having a vision. It's quite another thing to execute on a vision. And it's even more challenging to sustain that vision for 40 years, not only keeping the RSI on track with the highest of standards, but adding programs of the highest quality, USA Biology Olympiad, the Teacher Enrichment Program, and STEM Lyceums. Joanne and I have been friends for a long time. We've shared hairdressers, and we've complained about shoes that hurt. I admire her so much. I admire her tenacity, her determination, and she has been through some tough times over the years. Backing her up has been an outstanding board of directors. From the early board members that I remember, Jay Lambert, Julian Stanley, Michael Jordan, David Rubenstein, Milton and Betty Drano, Frank Carlucci was mentioned, Nick Galetas, Gordon Binder, and Admiral Inman, to those who are serving today, and Mel Chaskin and Stephen Young, and the others that I met here during this weekend. A word about Admiral Inman. He has been there to support RSI and Joanne all these years, including serving as chairman at least twice, and remaining a major confidant and advisor to Joanne. So I assure you, he is the right one to be honored here. And I want to give special recognition to Joanne's terrific staff. from those years ago. I mean, Maite Ballestero is still here. Bless you, Maite. And many of you will remember Mariana Pestana and Mady Hoover. Without their steadfastness and unfailing support of Joanne and the programs, we would not be here tonight. I love the fact the RSI has reunions. I attended one in Los Angeles several years ago. Actually, it was not only RSI alums, but USA Biology Olympiad ones as well. I consider the reunions a critical aspect of this organization. The reunions serve to strengthen the relationships that have been formed and add new ones with other students with similar interests who have had similar experiences at MIT or the USA Biology Olympiad. I think Admiral Rickover would be proud knowing that his vision of this outstanding organization has been nurtured and sustained for 40 years and that all of you would come to celebrate it. Thank you so much for this honor. I think I'll go this way.
And now, our International Medal of Excellence. I'd like to speak somewhat about Sanjay, who is here with his family. The Center for Excellence in Education began its relationship with the nation of India in 1985, when 5 outstanding young high school scholars were chosen by the government of India to attend the Summer Research Science Institute. One of those 5, a successful entrepreneur, serves on the center's board of trustees and moderated the AI session today. Arvind Parsatharathy, where are you? Wherever Arvind is. 2 groups of RSI alumni subsequently traveled to India for 2 weeks of scientific and cultural adventure hosted by the government of India. The 5 students were vetted by the PSBB group of schools and its founder, my dear friend Dr. Y.G. Parsatharathy in Chennai. The center initiated the Research Science Initiative several years ago with the PSBB group of schools and the Indian Institute of Technology in Chennai. The initiative continues to thrive, and the center continues each year to receive several of India's highest achieving STEM students to the RSI. The logistics of identification and selection of students from India is a difficult task, with thousands of deserving students applying to be chosen for the RSI at MIT. The project for assuring transparency and meritocracy would not be possible if it were not for our honoree from Bangalore, Sanjay Palsamundram. Sanjay graduated from Arizona State University with a master's in electrical engineering and an undergraduate degree in electronics from Bangalore University in India. His vast experience in technology was demonstrated when he was CEO of Yana Mobility and, before that, co-founded SmartPlay Technologies. He spent 15 years in the U.S. managing large operations for Texas Instruments and Sun Microsystems. He set up Sun's India Engineering Center, working with the Indian government. Sanjay's passion for education is phenomenal, and he has involved himself with programs for underrepresented populations in India, for children to learn about STEM subjects and technology. Sanjay presently identifies high schools in India having high-achieving STEM students to apply to the Research Science Institute at MIT. The center relies on the network of STEM schools in India that he has vetted by committee. Students selected from India are funded by entrepreneurs. He is presently assisting the center with plans to inaugurate a research science initiative in India that will mirror the Research Science Institute at MIT. His company, Alpha Seas Corporation, will also assist with the program. The many hours of work with CEE to host India's finest students and the planning now underway for a program in India is with the guidance of Sanjay. The Medal of Excellence to an International Person of Merit is most deserving to this dedicated STEM advocate. It is an honor to have him with us this evening, and we have such gratitude for his help to CEE. Sanjay, will you come forward?
Good evening, everyone. I just stand here humbled, especially with Bobby and Gail, with decades of contributions to CEE, to STEM is incredible. It's just inspirational to me and even more motivating to contribute to 40 years of excellence that CEE under Joanne's leadership has achieved. My background is very different. I hail from India, was born and brought up in India. In India, those who are familiar can relate to this adage. If you do not have a degree in medicine, or there are 3 degrees, medicine, engineer, and failure. So if you're not in the STEM field, you are pretty much considered a failure. I am a first-generation high school student, and my parents had the foresight and vision to encourage me to pursue STEM and study. And I can't be more thankful, grateful, and proud of them to push me into education. Otherwise, perhaps I would be trading like many of my forefathers. My association with CEE may be for a few years, say 4 years, but I feel I belong to this family for the entire 40 years. There has not been a single video that's there on YouTube which I have not seen about CEE. And if there is a competition for trivia, I'm sure I'm going to win that. But that said, my goal was to not just help CEE in the US. My goal continues to remain to have the center establish an RSI program in India, and its job still unfinished. Like many science experiments, like you all can relate to, it needs funding, it needs talent, it requires time and patience. We are very close to establishing funding, and I'm very committed and dedicated to make sure we can establish this program in India with Joanne's guidance and her leadership. Hopefully, she'll be in a position to announce very soon. Again, I feel very humbled and I'm very grateful for this honor. Thank you very much. And I hope CEE and the center thrives, progresses, and achieves more milestones and successes for the next 40 years. Thank you.
Well, as we close this portion of the program, I do have an exciting announcement to make. The RSI in India, which we will call an initiative, because there's only one research science institute here. We're planning it for 2025, and it will be funded by Mr. Param Adami of our board. Param, please stand up. And that's the whole program he will fund. But not only that, we are looking at perhaps a new home for the USA Biology Olympiad, perhaps in 24, maybe in 25. We're negotiating now. But Param has also committed today to fund the USABO at its new home for several years. Thank you again. Now, not so many Rickoids or people have the funds of the Adami family in India, but I found this evening and today that there are several Rickoids of considerable means that we somehow didn't know about. But we know where you are now, and you know where we are. And we do need your help. So many Rickoids assist us, and the Rickoids are increasing their work in the capital campaigns and funding. But we're hoping that we can encourage many of you who have started your organizations, your companies, and are successful, that you will work with us to get to the 10 million. Our head of our endowment committee, Rashid Sabar, who is here and will speak at our board meeting and speak at the alumni meeting tomorrow, said if we continue on the path we will hit that. We have a possibility of hitting that 10 million this next year. But you know, we couldn't do any of this without you. And it's testimony this evening. It was unbelievable. We thought we would have 175 alumni with us, and we sent things up here for 200 just to have extras. We cut off registrations at 240. It just means you're helping us. And I would like to thank so much my dedicated staff who this last several months have been with me in my side. Will they stand? So let's get on with the rest of the program. Thank you so much.
We got a whole pile of notes up here now. So the next part of the program, since it's 40 already, we're going to have to move through this a little quickly. We're going to recognize each class. So I'm going to call out a number. That number corresponds to the year of RSI. And I would like the members of that class to stand up, and we'll do this in succession. I'll actually go in order so it's easier. 1984. 1985. 1986. 87. 88. 89. 90 East. And now 90 West. 1991. 1992. 1993. 94. 95. 96. 1997. Yes. 1998. 99. 2000. 'Alrighty, how about alt 1? 2002. Oh, there we go. 2003. 2004. 05? 2006. Anybody? We absent 2000? 07. 2008. 2009. 2010. 2011. 2012. 2013. Yay. 2014. 2015. 2016. 2017. 2018. 2019. 2020. Yeah. All right, we're in the home stretch here, folks. 21. 22. And a big shout for this year's class. Anybody here from 23? All righty, that's exciting. We really got a lot of representation here, which is great. So I do have a moment here, a more solemn moment, and I know for a lot of us this has been a trying year, and I think we want to take some time now. I'm going to read out some names in memory of Rickoids, CE members who have gone too soon but are forever remembered. I'll read the names, and then I'll ask you to observe a moment of silence. Kent Talma Churchill, RSI 84. Frederick Rober, RSI 84. Shay Gardner, RSI 86. Scott Crutchfield, RSI 88. Julie Schofield from 88. Christina Domniswaru, RSI 02. Lahari Koganti, RSI 04. Andrew Beneke, RSI 05. Galin Statev, RSI 08. Philip Strike, RSI 08. Luke Tang, RSI 13. Daryl Wu, RSI 13. Aknazar Kajimurat, RSI 18. In their memory, let's observe a moment of silence. Thank you. So I was a member of the CE staff for many years, and we went sometimes without paychecks, and it was a tightly knit family, and so I just wanted to recognize, no, Joanne had the staff stand up, but I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the staff. Excuse me, sorry, I had my notes here, and now I'm goofing it up, typical. I'll get yelled at about this, don't worry. To recognize them all by name so that they have a chance to be recognized individually. Hasib Baharstani, Charles Farmer, Alan Fireharm, Tom Flavel, Stephen Ford, Kathy Frame, Heather Hill, Catherine Kai, Sandy Lee, Peter Pober, Chiki Sanchez, James Schuyler, Chris Sedlock, Devin Simmons, Gamekis Tassisa, and volunteers John Dorfler and Jackie Martin and Nina Vassan, all of whom have helped out. And again, let's give them a big round of applause. They just couldn't be done without them. So thank you. It might be that I got this job only because I own my own tux, but the truth is, I have been serving for several years now on the alumni committee to do fundraising, and I did want to recognize Matt Thrasher, who's here and heading it up this year. Matt, if you just want to stand up and take a bow. Thank you. That's the guy who's later going to hit you up for money, and I'm not going to do that now. And the reason I'm not going to do it is important. And I mean, for a lot of people, for me, the center and my association with CEE was a lot of firsts, and I think that was true for a lot of you. It was my first exposure to real science, which I didn't get coming from Central Louisiana. I got my first job, thanks to Joanne, at CEE, working for the center. I learned how to drive stick for the first time on the DeGenero's old Volkswagen. I met my first and probably only wife because of CEE. And and this is a true story, this tuxedo was purchased on a CE-sponsored trip with Joanne's encouragement. The reason we're not asking you right now for the money, the reason this is not a fundraising-focused dinner is you're the people who've walked on the lot already. You wouldn't walk on the lot if you didn't want to buy, which is great. We're glad you're here. You're a supporter. You're already on the hook. Fantastic. Your donors, your participants, you're already involved. I said this at an event not that long ago at Stanford. I'll say the same thing now. The community is what's important. You are part of this community. You are the active members, the active participants in this community. The people who you know who are not here tonight, some of the classes who are not represented, the people who you know, who you would like to see, who you remember from RSI fondly, who you haven't talked to in 5, 10, 15, 20, 35 years. Those are the people you need to leave here tonight, or do it right now, or do it later after you've had a couple of drinks. Call them, text them, write them, and say, you know what, I missed you. I want to see you again. I want to hear from you. How are you doing? What are you up to? You don't have to ask them for money. Again, we're not asking them for money right then. What we really want is for them to participate in the community. If they're participating in the community, that's important. If they want to give $1, fantastic. If they want to give $10, fantastic. If they want to sponsor a whole program in India, fantastic. But they need to get involved first. You don't start out giving $1 million. You don't start out devoting yourself for hours and weeks to doing stuff for the center. You don't start out putting on a tux and coming up here and making jokes. You have to be involved at the earliest stage. And the people that are not here, that you know, that you haven't talked to, reach out to them. Reach out in the darkness, reach out to a friend, reach out to people you haven't talked to in a long time, and just involve them back in the community. Some people, they just forgot. Some people, they want to, but they haven't thought about it in a while. They see the CEE email, they think they might do it, but they don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to do it. Some people, they didn't start 4 biotech companies. They didn't win a Nobel Prize. They didn't get a tenured professorship. They're out there living their lives, doing their thing with their families. And maybe what they feel is, those RSI kids, man, are elitists, they're, super scientists. Again, reach out to them, assure them, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you're doing now, I would like you involved in my life. And if you want to get involved with the center, if that's a thing that you remember, that we remember fondly, let's do it together. Write something to CEE. Give $1. Give $5. Call somebody else on the phone. Call another friend that you know. This is important, involving people in the community. The initial bar is very low. A phone call, a text, an email, a message, whatever it happens to be. TikTok video you hear tonight dancing, whatever it is. But reach out to the people that you know that are not here. You're the ones who are already here. You're the ones who are involved. You're the core of this community. You're the ones who show up to the reunion. We got you already. Fantastic. You need to go out and get somebody else. That's your mission. So thank you. We just have a couple more items for tonight, and I'd like to welcome the singers back up for the closing music, and we'll have a closing musical number, and then we'll end with the video of Admiral Rickover, and I'll be back up here to talk about that in just a minute. Thank you.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne.
Thank you.
Joanne and I debated about this a little bit. Are we going to close with the video again? And I was like, absolutely, we got to see it again. Some people may not have seen it. You might have seen it 5 times. You might have seen it 10 times. It's still good. It's good every time. So we're going to close tonight with the Diane Sawyer interview of Admiral Rickover, a memory of the great man who started the program and his legacy. Thank you.
He's the Navy's most famous and most cantankerous admiral. Hyman George Rickover, the father of the nuclear submarine, was censured last month for accepting gifts from a naval contractor, General Dynamics, over a 16-year period. The gifts totaled more than $67,000, but it seems that the company was wasting its money. Before he retired, Rickover declared war on General Dynamics. He accused them of trying to cheat the government. When we first broadcast this interview, the investigation of the Admiral and the gifts had just begun. But the 84-year-old Rickover was undaunted. He was much the same as he had been in 1957, the last time he submitted himself to an unrestricted personal interview. Combative, challenging, deliberately provocative.
No, I never have thought I was smart. I thought the people I dealt with were dumb, including you.
I'll tell you, to be called dumb by you is to be in very good company. Edward R. Murrow, for one, I think he said he asked you stupid questions.
I told him the same. I told him he was asking stupid questions, and he agreed. He says, well, what question should I ask? And I told him.
You're looking for easy solutions. The trouble with you is you want easy answers, but you don't know the proper questions.
All right, you go ahead and phrase the question and then phrase the answer.
Perhaps the question should be, what should be the role of educated or intellectual people in the United States? Now, does that sound like a better question?
That's a fine question.
In an interview or on a ship, Hyman George Rickover likes to take command. Even at 84, the Admiral can inspect a submarine with the agility of an ensign. In Rickover's mind, these are his submarines. He designed the reactor, he trained the men. 1 out of 4 admirals commanding ships today was trained by Rickover. His nuclear empire became known as Rickover's Navy, and it ran solely Rickover's way.
And you just thought that the rules of the Navy were silly.
I don't know, but I never read the rules. I prohibited it. We never had a book of Navy regulations in my office. I prohibited it. One time some guy brought it in, and I told him to get the hell out and burn it.
Because you wanted them to think.
I wanted them to think. If they knew what their job was, they didn't need a book of regulations.
How can you run a Navy if everybody in it acts like you do? If everybody considers
I never told the others how to act. I acted my own way, my own genius.
But you know they said that you were unaccountable.
I was 100% accountable. If anything had ever gone wrong with a nuclear ship, to whom would they have pointed their finger at? What they mean is I would not do all the things they asked me to do. I did the things I thought was right.
But that's not working within the system. Isn't that what the military is about, working within the system?
My job was not to work within the system. My job was to get things done and make this country strong.
What he got done was this: the Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, launched in 1952, the machine that would change military strategy forever. This submarine could stay underwater for months. Rickover stunned the world by building the Nautilus from scratch in only 5 years, leaving the Russians far behind. Many people called him the best engineer the Navy ever had. Today, there are 141 ships in the nuclear fleet. But once, there was just the man and his obsession, with science, not saluting, with engineering, not command.
What drew you down into the body of the ship to learn about why the cranks cranked and the...
Oh, for Christ's sake, what the hell is there about standing up and saluting and dressing up in the uniform? You can put dummies to do that job.
That's why you became an engineer?
Well,
Naval
I was
engineer?
in the Navy, and I could do more, and I could learn more. I couldn't see myself just standing off to the deck watches and saluting and all that nonsense.
But why did you work
I was
so
getting
hard?
paid for it.
No, why did you work...
I would have worked hard at any job. No job I ever undertook that I didn't work hard on.
Why? Why did it all matter
Because
to
that's
you
what
so
being
much?
a human being is, to do the best you can under any circumstances.
What is at the heart of leadership? Is it in personality, charisma?
No. For example, I have the charisma of a chipmunk. So what the hell difference does that make?
It was certainly not his personality that won Rickover 3 Distinguished Service Medals. And to celebrate the Nautilus, a ticker tape parade through the streets of New York, a long way from the tiny town in Russian-occupied Poland where Rickover was born, the son of a tailor. A long way for the boy who landed at Ellis Island at the age of 6 and grew up in a ghetto in Chicago and won an appointment to the Naval Academy at Annapolis. He was terrified he wouldn't make it. He became the class grind.
Did you ever go out on dates?
No,
Did you ever go to dances?
no.
Did you ever go to the movies?
On Saturday night occasionally, I studied. Girls didn't, I was so busy trying to get by, stay alive, that I didn't worry about girls. You can get along without girls. Yeah, don't wink at me.
Was it a very snobbish atmosphere?
No. Sure, everybody got hazing there at that time, and I got probably somewhat more than the average. So what? I was mature.
But why did you get more than other people, you think?
Because I was Jewish. They didn't have any. Very rare for a Jew to go to the Naval Academy. You know, an interesting thing that later on, many years later, when I had high rank in the Navy, one or two of those, I was going to use the word bastard, came around and asked me for favors for them. Those who had treated me that way, I wouldn't do it.
You remembered him?
Of course. And the most pleasant thing was in becoming an officer and going to a ship and seeing the mature adult attitude in which one was treated as compared to that lousy boys' school.
Today, that lousy boys' school has a science building named for Rickover. Inside, models of his submarines and the testing devices he invented. Rickover's science and a Rickover superstition, it's supposed to be good luck to rub his nose, the one on the statue. And how about the Rickover stories? The admirals who run the Naval Academy remember being grilled by Rickover when they applied for admission to his nuclear sub-school.
One young man there came in with long hair, and you told him he had to choose between the long hair and the program. And he walked out and said, my girlfriend likes this ponytail.
Fine. That was the end. The little son of a bitch should have got them, cut it all off and gotten a wig.
I heard that you had people come in and you sat them down in chairs in which some of the legs were shorter than the other.
No, not only two. I saw 6 inches from
just
two front,
two.
only two. And it was difficult because it was a shiny chair and they kept on sliding off. So they had to maintain their wits about them while they were asked these questions while they were sliding off the chair.
And what about those that you brought in and made stand in the broom closet?
Well, they came in, they gave stupid answers, so I thought I'd give them a chance to think. I'd put them in there for a couple hours, 3 hours, and gave them plenty of time to think.
But what were you trying to do with these young men who came into
I was trying to draw out of them what they had potentially in them.
A young ensign from Georgia eluded the broom closet, but couldn't escape Rickover's demand for excellence.
But did you hate him a little?
There were a few times, yeah, when I hated him. Because he demanded more from me than I thought I could deliver.
James Earl Carter hated him, revered him, and became his commander-in-chief.
Is anyone his boss?
I never really felt like his boss, although he would say that I was. I'm not sure that he ever acknowledged it really deep down in his heart.
Carter and 4 other presidents would intervene to keep Rickover on active duty 20 years past his retirement date. The Navy was not pleased. It had been trying to retire Rickover as far back as the year he launched the Nautilus. His fellow officers were tired of his abrasiveness and contempt for regulations. But Rickover had taken care to build alliances in the White House and on Capitol Hill. In a public relations tour de force, he cultivated members of Congress by asking their wives to sign the keels of his submarines and by turning his launches into lavish photo opportunities for his congressional supporters.
Well, if it's a confrontation,
he valued their protection. They valued his blunt testimony.
What do you think is the prospect then for nuclear war?
Well, I think we'll probably destroy ourselves. So what difference will it make? Some new species will come up that might be wiser than we are. I do not believe in divine intercession. In the eyes of the Lord, we are not the most important thing in the universe.
The Reagan administration finally forced Rickover to retire in 1982. Nearly everyone said he was too old. But after 64 years of service, he didn't even receive the courtesy of a call.
My wife told me it's on the radio that you're fired. That's how I found out about it. Yeah. That's how the Navy notified me, my wife hearing it on TV.
Were you surprised when the Reagan administration told him goodbye?
No, because the defense contractors were out to get Rickover for a long time. He was an embarrassment to them, and he was part of a one-man watchdog.
There was over $1 billion worth of claims by shipbuilders, which I thought were false, and I fought it. Now, it's quite a complete coincidence, but within a month or 2 months after I left, most of that money was given to the shipbuilders. Of course, that's a coincidence.
The shipbuilders did hate him because he refused to pay them and because he demanded perfection. He said they didn't know ships from horse droppings. And now Rickover has been charged with taking presents from the shipbuilders. A former executive from one contractor, General Dynamics, was the first to reveal that Rickover had been given gifts. A lot of them, some of them expensive.
Oh, they gave me little plaques. They gave me all kinds. One time, I think, I even got a small diamond from the time I was married. But the question that so did others. I don't deny it, but the question that ought to be asked is, did I ever favor General Dynamics or any other contractor? The question is whether it influenced you.
But how can an American citizen know whether it influenced you or not?
I didn't think about the views of the American citizen. I was governed by my own thoughts.
In fact, Rickover requested a lot of the gifts so he could give them to members of Congress who supported his subs. Expensive gifts, and not just the keychains he picked up off his desk.
Why do you think this has come out now?
On the kind of
General
claims,
Dynamics.
I accused them of false claims.
General Dynamics.
General Dynamics, I always stuck to.
And you think this is just a little revenge they're taking on you?
I don't care. They're not taking any revenge on me. I have my own conscience. Do you think I was crooked when I was in office? Do you think the public thinks so? Because I get things like that.
But do you worry that at the end of this long career that something like this is raised and your ethics are questioned in the press?
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I think God knows what I did. And I don't care what the contractors or you think.
What Rickover admits to caring about is American education. Over the years, he has given $100,000 of his own money to educational projects. And now he's raised some $200,000 for a foundation of his own, the Rickover Science Institute, which brings 60 gifted students to Washington each summer for intensive study.
What is it that you think the gifted children most need that they're not getting in the school
They need
system?
the exercise of their brains. They need not to be kept in apathy, not to let their parents run around and have a good time. The primary function of parents in this world is to raise their children to the best of their ability. They're not doing it.
Okay, well, I agree with you in that we need to invest more money.
Well, thank you very much.
And sometimes the educator can't resist being the admiral again.
And they seem to be
You
increasing.
better talk up because the audience is not hearing what you're saying. Start all over again and talk up. Yeah, use all your equipment. Come on.
If Rickover is hard on parents and kids, he's also hard on an institution he fathered, civilian nuclear power. This is the plant at 3 Mile Island. Rickover built the first civilian nuclear plant. He says nuclear energy will be necessary for the future because Americans are squandering their resources. But he worries that the plant technicians are not being properly supervised, and he worries where the nuclear discovery will lead.
One of the most remarkable things that he ever told me was when we were together on the submarine, and he said that he wished that a nuclear explosive had never been evolved. And then he said, I wish that nuclear power had never been discovered. And I said, Admiral, this is your life. He said, I would forego all the accomplishments of my life, and I would be willing to forego all the advantages of nuclear power to propel ships, for medical research, and for every other purpose of generating electric power, if we could have avoided the evolution of atomic explosives.
Who's the biggest threat in the use of nuclear weapons? Is it the Russians?
It's always somebody else. Of course. You might think maybe it's the fault of both of us. Where do I sign? Here?
Right, sir.
Why don't you write your initial? People will always remember how you look. They'll never forget.
You won't even accept the bureaucracy of signing your name out.
I never have. Even in the military, I'll do that.
You don't agree with the rule?
I agree. Any rule that I like, I agree with.
Rickover walks 4 miles a day and works 11 hours, arranging fundraisers and speeches. Here with the director of his foundation, Joanne DeGennaro. He's also working on a book, a kind of summation. The text will be taken from these notebooks, 100 volumes of thoughts and ideas Rickover has written and collected through his lifetime.
That's not a good one. It says, Dean Acheson said.
And among the volumes, a glimpse of the private Rickover, a man few people other than his second wife, Eleanor, know. The love letters he wrote to his first wife 50 years ago.
This is, you were on a submarine.
Yeah, what I
And you were, read this to me. This is so
I'll
terrific.
read it to you. Forgive me for not writing more. I am so tired. Above all, though, there is the clear thought of you and of my love. Your vision is ever fresh, smiling, and lovely. Your lightness and alertness contrasts with my drowsiness. Good night. I shall fall asleep with thoughts of you as my lullaby. Is that a good?
The letters his first wife wrote back are gone. Rickover says he burned them in despair the night she died.
Do you think there's an afterlife?
I don't know. I've never talked with any of the people there, and I don't know. Never met any yet.
You don't think it likely there's a heaven and a hell?
I don't give any thought to that. I think you make your heaven and hell right on this earth. You should act on this earth as if it were heaven.
A footnote on those gifts that got the Admiral in such trouble. The Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman, said that the censure of Rickover should not overshadow his many achievements. It was just that a Navy Admiral should be held to a higher standard. In response, Rickover issued a public rebuttal of the charges. He has also called Secretary Lehman one of the biggest fools the Navy ever had.
Okay, folks, we're gonna wrap it up here. You are released only until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. if you want the free breakfast. For the alumni meeting, 10 a.m. tomorrow, please turn up. Your voice matters. Thank you, everybody.